Female Finance Collective, where we encourage women to have open and honest conversations about all things money. Today, we're going to walk you through the financial life of a plan builder by telling you about the story of Penny. Penny isn't a real person, but she represents women who built a strong foundation of financial literacy and are now in the plan building phase. Our conversation will be a bit like a case study. We'll discuss where Penny is and suggestions that we have and ideas for what she might want to be working on both now and in the future.
Great. So let me introduce you to Penny. Penny is 40. She was married for many years, but was recently divorced. Once Penny realized she'd be single and managing her finances all on her own, she decided it was a good time to focus on her money. Yay, Penny. She knew things weren't going to change financially for her, and she wanted to do her best to avoid using credit cards and accumulating debt if she could. She knew things were going to change for her financially, and she wanted to do her best to avoid credit cards and accumulating debt if she could. Penny spent a lot of time learning about her money, keeping track of her expenses, and setting up a budget. She asked friends for help and advice so she could decide what would work best for her. She checked on her retirement plan at work and made sure she was contributing there and that she understood what types of funds her money was being into. She started to build up an emergency fund in case of any unexpected expenses. She set up a high yield savings account and started really small with just putting in a few dollars a week, but has been able to increase it over time. She feels good about her monthly expenses and has been able to keep credit card balances either zero or pretty low. But now that Penny has had this success getting herself to this point, she's ready for the next step.
It's interesting because I was in the same situation as Penny. And I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the mindset and how sometimes you feel really lonely and it's scary to make some of these decisions on your own. Navigating a separation or divorce, there's so many moving pieces and complexities. And it's a time where there can be a lot of financial stress and also relationship stress. And I actually found a lot of comfort in looking at my numbers. So just getting into the regular habit of tracking. And this is exactly what Penny has been doing. And she's been kind of moving up through those foundational stages. And she's in a really good place now. She has clarity around her finances. She's starting to think about expanding on some of the goals that she has. And I think what would really help her is to figure out an accountability buddy. So maybe that's a friend, maybe that's someone who has a similar situation, and just someone to talk about money together, because it's really difficult to make those financial decisions on your own. So that's great for a lot of decisions that may come her way. If things get more complicated, then Penny may want to consider working with a financial planner or a financial advisor just to get more strategy when it comes to some of that longer term saving. But I think seeking some support, especially for those tough days, if you're single and you have kids, expenses pop up, and it can be really stressful to figure out, like, how do I pay for this, and what does education look like for my kids? Like, all of these big picture decisions can be difficult to work towards. So that's where an accountability buddy or someone to help professionally can be a good place for her to start thinking about next.
I think that's so important because, as I've shared many times, I did not get myself an accountability buddy or a partner, and it was so lonely and intimidating to be doing it on my own. And even if I had found a partner who was in my exact same boat, right, who knew nothing and we just knew nothing together, I think there would have been so much power in that. Like, we would have been more willing to try. So I think getting that a partner or a friend or a family member or somebody that she can talk to is such good advice. And then I think we talk a lot on this podcast about learning and not being afraid to ask questions, Google, get on my favorite site, NerdWallet, and like look up information and learn. And I think this is a really good time to keep learning. Don't sit in the comfortable where you're like, oh, I already know the basics, good enough. Like, this is the perfect time now that you really do understand the foundational skills to kind of take it to the next level and start learning about different types of investments, different types of retirement savings. You know, Penny is putting into her work retirement plan, but she could start thinking about different options for kind of creating her own personal long-term savings account, uh, IRAs, and all of those good things. We're going to talk about those, everybody, also in a few episodes. We know that we throw out these words a lot and not everybody knows what they mean, or these acronyms. And so in a couple of episodes, we're going to kind of break down what those things are and how you can invest in them. So stick with us for that. We'll talk through it. So if you find yourself like Penny, or like we talked about Faith in the last episode, we're going to share kind of some specifics about what those things are. But this is the perfect time for her to kind of take it to the next level, if you will, both literally and figuratively, when it comes to those investments and thinking long term and starting to set goals for the future.
Yeah, it's really an opportunity for her to start setting some of those more like middle term and long term goals, right? To start to keep learning, like you said, Jen, and to start thinking, okay, in 5 years, what might I need money for? Do I want to start saving for a dream vacation for something? Do I want, to renovate my home? Do I need to put children through college or think about weddings, things like that, right? And so she can start setting some of those longer term goals and then living her life with that in mind, right? Her investment life, but also her day-to-day spending life, right? So thinking about how can Penny is really putting in a little bit of money to emergency savings and to investments right now. So how can I increase that to meet some medium term and longer term retirement goals? And what do those numbers actually look like for me at this time, right? Actually doing the math and working out with an investment calculator, for example, on NerdWallet or somewhere else, right? Starting to put in some numbers. If I put in 100 more each month into my retirement account at 6 to 10%, increase, then I will have X amount of money this, when I'm 65 or whatever age you may want to see. And then you can start to use the numbers to make those decisions. And it becomes a little less risky feeling and scary feeling, right? When it's like, okay, I can see in the calculator, if I put in 100 more a month, every month until I'm 65, I'm going to have this amount of money at retirement. It helps you better able to make those decisions and move forward and stick to that plan or that short term, or not short term, that medium term or long term goal, right? So I would say for Penny, really just starting to look at the numbers and make those decisions about how much she wants to build up her emergency savings to, how much she wants to allocate to investments, how much she might want to allocate to savings for things like a vacation or whatever her financial goals are. This is really the time to start doing that and start making your money work for you, right? When you see, if I put $100 in more a month on that calculator and what it grows to, it's very motivating, right? Knowledge and understanding the numbers becomes motivating. It might be daunting and overwhelming to start it, but she's already started. And the reason we call this the plan builder stage is because a lot of planning and goal setting and next steps can start to happen as you can make your money work for you a bit more at this stage because you understand your bigger financial picture.
At this stage, you're definitely starting to have more strategic decisions. So you do have an excess cash flow every month. And you're also looking at things that happen on a non-monthly basis. So if you're getting an annual bonus, you're thinking about what to do with that money well in advance. And the benefit of that is when you have a plan in place, you are less likely to make those impulse decisions and just spend the whole thing on a new wardrobe. You've looked at your priorities. So you might have a couple of different financial goals and you know which one is number one. So, for Penny, it could be to take a vacation because she hasn't been on one in a certain number of years. And it's just working out how much to devote monthly towards that goal. I find that a lot of clients at this stage, so the plan builder stage, one of the budgeting styles to look at that can be really helpful is what's called a balanced budget, or a 50-30-20 budget. So where about 50% of your take-home income goes to your needs, so your housing, cars, food, all of those needs. 30% is towards wants. So that could be things like the vacation, just those extra, they're not required to sustain life, but they're the luxuries that you enjoy. That could be, take out lunch at work once a week or something like that. And then 20% would be savings and or debt payments. And so your saving at the beginning might be a smaller percentage, but really the goal is over time to get to that amount where you're saving about 20% of your income. It might seem like a daunting and high number, but a lot of plan builders are working with something like that as their goal in mind, because that is sufficient for most people to fund retirement, and potentially to do it a little bit sooner than they originally anticipated. So you're really looking, you're expanding your time frame, and you're starting to take more money out of your income and devoting it to getting debt paid faster and or building savings.
That's exactly what I did, Marilee. I got into the 50-30-20 budget pretty much at this plan builder stage. It really worked well for me because my brain got it. I need this. I want this, but I actually really want this 20% too, like, because I want to be able to invest in my future. And like you said, start thinking about what age do I want to retire at? Just because society tells us it's 65, doesn't mean that that's the age I want to retire at. So that 20% became, like a motivator and almost a want as well. And then it's like, do I want this, more, or do I want to buy this right now? Right. And so I could kind of start comparing my wants, right? You have your needs. And then also thinking about, like, as you plan ahead, like, how can you lower your needs expenses, or how can you lower your wants expenses, right? All three categories are kind of game for you to play with, right? If I want to be able to invest and save more of that 20%, then I got to pay off my debt. So more of that 20% goes to my retirement, or goes to my medium length savings, for my vacation or whatever it may be. So I'm glad you brought that up. I really like that. My kind of brain likes that framework and way to kind of allocate my money. It works well for me.
I think it's good too, because it's really helpful to have a jumping off point. I think if you're creating a budget, like tracking your spending and creating a budget for the first time, you're not really sure how much money should be going where. And so if you're just starting to hear those percentages and you're looking at your budget and you're like, I'm not even close, or whatever, I have two suggestions. One, adjust the percentages a little bit for you right now, and then use those as a goal in the future. So if you need it to be, 75-25, then do it like that, like whatever works for you. But it does help to have kind of a framework or a target that you're shooting for. The second thing is, and this is one of those things that this isn't for everybody, and some of you might already be doing this, but sometimes we have to come up with a second source of income and to make ends meet, to get to our goals, to help us start to pay off debt so that we can free up money every month. And a second source of income doesn't have to be a permanent situation. It doesn't have to be something that you're doing forever. It doesn't have to be like a second full-time job. There are a ton of options out there, especially right now. This 2024 is like a really interesting time for work. And there are all kinds of things that you can do that are just short-term commitments, a few hours a week, maybe one evening a week or weekends or and just a ton of options that you can start looking into those things, asking people about them to maybe just increase your income. Even like I know for me, if I could have increased my income even like 150 or $200 a month, and if I could have put that towards my debt and kind of use the rest of my money to kind of fall into those percentages, I would have been in a much better position. That's eventually how I did get myself out of debt. I was working two jobs a lot. Um, and it was it stressful? Yes. Was it a lot of work? Yes. But are there a lot of options where you can still make sure that you're honoring your time to honoring time with yourself? If you have kids, honoring your time with your kids for sure. But don't be afraid to ask for help, ask people questions. What do they know? Do they have any opportunities? I mean, you guys, I did this job one time where in the summers, I was a teacher, and in the summers, I went to someone's house. I totally forgot I did this until a couple weeks ago. And at night, I would just prep their dinner for them. And then I would leave. I would go for like an hour. They loved to have like fresh veggies with dip on the table. That's how their kids ate vegetables. And so I would just like get the food all ready. I would put it in the fridge. Everything would be cut and ready to go. The dinner, all they would have to do is put it in the oven or whatever the meal was that I prepped. And they paid me like, I don't even remember what it was, probably like $100 a week or 75 bucks a week. And I just went and did that. And that money added up. And it was something that I could still work into my schedule, but still make some extra income. So think about things like that.
Yeah.
I
I
just
have to,
also, oh, go,
sorry.
go.
I have to hop on with that one. The other thing is look at your salary and income and see, is it time to ask for a raise? I find I don't want to, it's not just specific to women, but women in particular have a tough time asking for more money and ensuring that they're paid what they're worth and what they bring to the table. So definitely having a well-structured salary discussion can be great. I've done it in my career, and it made such a meaningful difference to have that conversation, to kind of outline what I'd like to get in terms of a raise, and that was really helpful. And just understanding what is the norm income for your specific type of job or for your industry. I also like to do a reflection exercise, and what I do is I picture myself 10 years older. And I think of how old my kids will be at that age as well. So I picture, myself, and I think about what future me would want me to do today to set her up for success. So you're really thinking about the actions that you can take. So what kind of plan can you build with your finances to take care of your future self 10 years down the road? There are things that she's going to want you to have done. And it's really helpful to kind of understand and get those in place. And speaking with people that are older than you, that have gone through that, is super helpful because it will give you some clues. I've worked with older people for a lot of my career, and things they share are their energy is usually lower. Sometimes they're just not able to work as long hours. Like there are things that happen as we age that are just natural part of the process. And so you want to make sure that you're thinking about the kind of the next life stage, and think about that for your plan building as well.
I love that, Marilee. And really thinking about like together with that kind of extra, I need to make some more money. And where do I want to be? What do I want it to feel like in 5 or 10 years? Like, how can you build skills right now to get that raise at work? Or how could I build skills right now about my passion of cooking so I could get a little side job to do somebody's meal prep, right? Like you were saying, Jen, right now is the prime time to monetize your passions, to get better at what you're doing, and whether your employer will give you that raise or you need to find another way to, make some more money with that passion or with those skills. Right now, like the information is so out there. It's more of like an awareness that I need to make a little extra money because I have these goals. And one way I can do it is by building these skills and monetizing them in some fashion, right? Like this is like the day of that.
Right.
It's really an exciting, fun time. I mean, you can be an Uber driver, you can do DoorDash, you can work for Faye as a home advisor, right, Jen? There's like so many innovative ways that you can make extra money right now that will bring you joy, actually. And that's the key. Like you don't want to put yourself in some miserable job unless you really need to. But we're talking about the plan building stage here, where you have more of that like kind of freedom if you're open and thinking and curious about what your skills are and strengths and what you might need to build, what opportunities are out there that you just didn't know about. Like there's so many opportunities that we just don't know about that would be perfect fits for us, right? And unless you go looking and learning and watching and listening, you might not ever find those. So I think this openness mindset is a really important part of this stage as plan builders as well, of being open to how can I make my money work for me? How can I work for more money? How can I, stop trading time for money, but invest more, etc. Right? It's just such a cool time.
I agree. And I think that's what makes being a foundation a builder so important. You get that part figured out and then you move here and now you're like, okay, I've got the foundation. Now I have a little more knowledge and a little more freedom to start to figure all of that stuff out.
Yep.
And one thing that's slightly off topic, but I think it lines up with all of this. So I'm not a mom, and I don't know if Penny's a mom because we didn't say if Penny has kids. But I also want to say that once you're a plan builder, well, even at foundation, but especially I think at this stage, when you have a lot of good information about money, this is a great time to start talking about this with your kids and being really open and honest and being transparent about what is happening, decisions you're making about wants versus needs, having those challenging conversations. We're not going to get that today, or we're not going to go to that place today because that's a want and not a need. And we need to use the money we have for things that we need: our rent, our groceries, our car, our bus pass, like whatever it is that those needs in your family, and really start having conversations with your kids and being really honest with them about how much things cost, how much money you have in your account dedicated to different things, because kids can learn that and they can understand it at a pretty young age. I think we don't give them enough credit. Um, and there are so many, we've all seen the funny videos. I actually saw a video of a grown-up, I might have shared it with you too, where she thought a credit card was essentially free money. And you're just supposed to, just remember, we've all seen kids say, just use your credit card, because we swipe mindlessly. We tap our phones now without thinking about it. And our kids are like, look, all you have to do is set your phone down and it's paying for things, right? So really teaching them to understand what that means, where the money's coming from, how you have to work, and you're working and you're making this much money and this much goes to pay for our apartment or our house and this much goes for this. They can understand that and start having those conversations with them so that they kind of leave your house already as a plan builder, right? Maybe even a wealth builder if you set it up that way. I just think that was an important thing that I didn't want to forget to say, because this is a great time to start having those conversations and working together with your kids on some of it.
Absolutely agree. That's been my philosophy, and it's really cool to see your kids start to understand numbers and start to conceptualize all of that, right? Like that's what they have to do in school, but money is such a real way to do it, like to really build that numeracy and understanding of numbers and compound interest and how much things actually cost. Yes, that sounds like a big paycheck, but this much of it goes to rent. Okay, let's subtract that. Oh my gosh, now I've only got this much left to spend for the rest of our month. So do you think we should go out and eat tonight? No, maybe not, right? Like they get it when you really do share those numbers and real life examples. And right now we're doing that with college. Like my daughter's going to college next year. We're really looking at those numbers, like it's going to cost us this much and this is how much we bring it in. How can we gap the difference? So I'm glad you brought that up. It's so, so important. And we should do a whole episode on like financial literacy for kids, for parents with their kids, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely. Love that. So I
All
think
right.
we're ready to wrap it up. So thank you so much for listening. Be sure to like and follow our podcast. You can find us on Instagram and on YouTube at the Female Finance Collective. And as always, we'd love to hear from you. So send us your questions, comment below, and we look forward to chatting next week.